sorry.
Mr. Dallas.
Did you ever look at someone else and think if only you had their life, you'd have it all?
Look at how cool this is. Signed by all 5 band members.
A soul of Detroit.
You know what the sickest thing is about you, little man? You fantasize about being somebody else, singing somebody else's songs. Oh, maybe if I get really lucky, I'll get to grow up and listen to Air Supply and wear jack boots like you. What's wrong with Air Supply?
You ass interrogator, try to around my face. It's gone.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Albert?
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elric coming to you with a hot off the presses edition of ML Soul of Detroit. Our intro, Rockstar, was fiddled with a little bit by Marc Fellhauer, who bears an uncanny resemblance to Glenn Guglia, who was the brother of, or brother-in-law, I think, of Mark Wahlberg there. Remember Glenn Guglia from Wedding Singer?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Julia Guglia?
Yeah, that was one of the rare Glenn Guglia appearances.
What a very weird reference.
I always liked Glenn Guglia. I didn't know why he didn't go further.
Reference.
He was a great guy. And Shawn Windsor rejoins us in studio. Now, a lot of people have been inquiring about Shawn's health. A few people have sent small donations inquiring about Shawn's health. We're glad to see Shawn looks better, but he says he'll feel a lot better if more donations come in. So please continue to tithe.
So I should not be in the studio.
No, you should be.
It's wrecking your fundraising apparatus.
No. If you could, I was going to say if you could look a little more haggard, but I don't think that's possible.
I'm more of a spectral presence.
Yeah. So the
not really here.
From death's door to Drew's basement, Shawn Windsor's here, but he could die if you don't.
Well, it's nice and toasty and smoky in here, right?
Yeah, it's super hot in here, man. Yeah.
So our special guest, when I tell people that he's a published author, that he was born in Grosse Pointe, but Detroit's most successful media figure, they usually think they're talking about me. Now they say, who's the unemployed guy who only works for a couple hours on Tuesday? And then they are talking about me. This week, it is the one and only J.T. Harding, rock star, songwriter, and man about town, a boulevardier. When he's not wearing his stormtrooper jacket, he rocks the leopard skin. Or is that cheetah?
Do not adjust your computers. I'm really dressed this way. Listen, if you're in your car, honk your horn. If you're at work, drum on your desk. And if you're still in bed, dance on your back, because I'm JT Harding and you're on Soul of Detroit, Detroit.
And a very, very sweet electrifying mojo reference. So JT knows everything about the Midnight Funk Association, the Dread Card. He's been there. He's done that. And he's put it all in his new book, which is just released today, I believe.
Today, baby. Party like a rock star. You can get it in your hot, steaming fingertips. And you probably don't know my name. You don't know my face, but you do know my songs. I've been very fortunate to write #1 songs for Blake Shelton, Keith Urban, Kenny Chesney, co-wrote Smile with the Great Uncle Cracker, Goo Goo Dolls, Jonas Brothers, all over the map. I didn't know anyone in the music business. I used to just stand outside of WRAF. That's why the cover of my book has little WRAF stickers on it. And it's great to be here, ML, and to your whole team. What's happening? I had to stay up all night to get up this early. I'm down in Nashville, but it's good to be here. Woo!
Right, and he is still up. They serve a lot of coffee there. It's not the rock and roll lifestyle.
Well, this is awesome
Nashville, Jesus and coffee. Yeah, they think Smokey and the Bandit is a documentary down here. I get in a lot of trouble.
JT, whatever you do, please keep interrupting Mike. This is awesome. That was the shortest intro we've ever had in the history of this podcast, thanks to you.
Wow, it's so good to have Shawn back. Before we sell some books for JT, we gotta sell some product for our sponsors, who are the ones who make it possible for us to be here. And first and foremost is our friend Luke Nowacki, who sponsors all our Red Shovel Network shows. He's a guy who's going to make sure that when you retire, you can do it with style.
Yeah, because overreaction is not the strategy for the long-term investors. That's why you need to call Luke at Pinnacle Wealth, 248-663-4748. Stocks, bonds, how do you allocate your 401k? What is a 401k? How do I get my company to have one? Get advice, get a strategy. Call Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth, 248 663-4748.
Because when you call Luke, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
And of course, we're grateful to David Hall. That was not written by JT, by the way. But
no, that sounds like Uncle Cracker on a case of Red Bull. What was that? Jeez,
yeah, maybe with a rubber band around his sack may put him in a different state of mind. But that's the feds for you. Hall Financial, also a sponsor of all our Red Shovel Network shows. They will save you a bundle, and while interest rates are going up, there's still a chance to save with David Hall.
Yeah, the most client-focused mortgage company in the industry. They're not going to cover the cost of your appraisal. It can save you up to $750. Home values are just shooting up in the last 2 years, and rates are going up now too, so you might want to check them out. Take the first step before you go buy that house. Call hallfirst.com. That's callhallfirst.com, or call them up on your phone, 866-CALL-HALL. I mean, how many 5-star reviews do they have? Over 5,000 of them. 2 of them from ML.
That's right. They did a great deal for me. When you give them a call, ask for my man, Dan, and tell all our sponsors when you do business with them that ML sent you. And before when JT and I were growing up, Where's the Beef was a big saying.
Or you can be like me, kids. Keep your money where you can see it, hanging in your closet. Thank you very much. Wow. Yes. Oh, Where's the Beef? What a great commercial that was, ML.
Yeah, it was. Well, if you're looking for the best beef you can find, there's the Butchery in Sylvan Lake. It's thebutcherysl.com. Their phone number is 248-682-2697. That's 248-682-COWS. They're open Wednesday through Sunday. They have great meats and sweet treats. Great little boutique grocery store, too. You can get some craft beers there. Pretty much anything you need to put on a great feed is right there at the Butchery in Sylvan Lake. So check them out.
Sound effects. That's what was missing. Sound effects. Jeez.
Where's the beef? That's right.
What's next? A Bazooki ad? Wow, you guys got everybody. Yeah.
Well, nice Bazooki, where they got nothing to hide. If you got enough money, you have to take some of that money out of the closet if they're going to take something off of their behind over there at the Bazooki. But we don't. This is a family show. We don't cotton to that kind of business.
Yeah, right. We'll take it
here.
Unless they reach out to us at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com and offer us a handsome fee. So JT, I've not seen JT since high school. I was on the staff of the Tower, which was our student newspaper, and I heard about a little local punk band that had gotten some airplay on college radio on CJAM FM, which at the time was way down on the dial. Now they're 99.1, still playing great music out of the University of Windsor. And these guys, God, he must have been a freshman or a sophomore, like they're getting airplay. And so I did a story on them, and it was Dirty Tricks with the TRIXX because, they're kind of edgy with the double X. If they were triple X, we couldn't have put them in the paper, or at least not any pictures. And that was kind of the last I thought about him. I mean, you saw him in the Battle of the Bands. JT and his band were outstanding, but it was Grosse Pointe. It was the 80s. So I think some probably really weak Spandau Ballet knockoff won that contest, but they electrified the scene. I did not see JT for years until I went to a funeral for a friend, and I got introduced to this kind of wild-looking dude who was, as hard to believe today, was very low-key. And we were introduced. It's like, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. And then we ended up sitting in the pews together because we didn't know that many people at the funeral. So, it's kind of like a wedding where the 2 single guys get put at the same table, the 2 old ladies are at the same table. And we started talking, and he said he had a book coming out. And I said, oh, wow. And he started telling me about the book. I said, oh, shit, you're JT Harding, which to me meant a lot. But what I know now is it means a lot to everybody in the music industry. So, JT, it's good to see you again. Second time now in 50 years?
Oh, great to be here. Well, you're skipping some of the amazing parts of the story. First of all, the first Battle of Bands, of course, I won because I studied MTV when other kids were studying algebra. Yeah, the year you saw us, we came in second, but I couldn't let it stand. So then we won the next year, then won the South Talent Show. But here's the best part about it. When I signed my book deal, I knew that I wanted there to be a picture of me breaking the guitar on the cover. So I went up to our cottage in northern Michigan, And I've saved every newspaper article, every song list I ever made, all of these things, because it took me years and years to make it. You know, my heart's been broken more than the ice cream machine at McDonald's because of the music business, but I did not quit. But anyway, so I couldn't find this picture. I kept going up north from Nashville. I knew the picture was there. I was losing sleep trying to find this picture. It took me months. I finally found this picture without a photo credit on it. Fast forward to the funeral for our great friend Ted Metri's mom. I'm sitting next to a guy. We both had masks on. I said, I'm JT. And you leaned over. I mean, this is like a bad after school special. You leaned over and said, I took a picture of you in high school. You were breaking a guitar. And dude, it was like someone poured cold water down my shirt. I just got chills. And I was like, I've been looking for that picture for months. I just found it. And here you are sitting next to me.
Wow.
Now it's the cover of my book. I mean, it's a great story. So thank you for taking that picture. And, in the photo, I'm wearing leg warmers. My clothes are ripped up and I'm smashing a guitar. As you can tell, I hate attention, but what a picture. What a picture.
Yeah. And, I think I figured out why they sat us together. All the guys with initials for first names got stuck in that one pew, I guess. But so the story,
or all the guys that really love themselves.
Yeah. No, I have a room in my house full of mirrors because I like to be surrounded by a winner. But no, seriously, ML's like, you were so subdued. It was a funeral,
I like
ML. I don't. The last place I want to be the center of attention is at a funeral.
Yeah, no, that's true because the guy with the best suit on is usually dead. But
yeah.
So the story,
that's why. I mean, really quick. That's why I wrote the book, because it's so everything today is so perfect. Everyone's pictures and everybody's posts. But growing up in Detroit, I didn't know anybody in the music business, and I was enamored with MTV. It was like Dorothy in black and white Kansas going into Oz when I saw MTV. Of course, I loved Riff already. I loved Wheels. And so I moved out to LA. I didn't have any kind of roadmap. I didn't know anybody. I stole a FedEx jacket. Well, I borrowed it and walked into record companies like Obi-Wan Kenobi, walking into the Death Star. And I put my cassette into every single mailbox every record company mailbox in LA. And that's why I wrote the book. I wish it was the book that someone had written when I was trying to get in the music business, because anyone can do it. I'm living proof. So that's that. Yeah.
Wow.
what a hustle. Obi-Wan Kenobi, he got killed, but he came back. He came back, and the Force was stronger in this one.
Wait, did that work? I mean, that's a pretty good hustling story. Did it?
You know what, Mark? A lot of people are saying, well, you didn't get any attention from that, did you? And I said, well, I did actually. The cops were after me for weeks. Well, I was so nice. Mark, it's a great question. And by the way, I made my first demo tape with money that I won on VH1 Rock and Roll Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Because one thing about Grosse Pointe, everyone works hard there, but no, my parents didn't give me money to move LA. They were mortified. So I was so naive that this could happen. I got a job at Tower Records on Sunset, this huge record store. I thought, well, people deliver records here. They must know the people that make the records. Every celebrity came in. It's all in my book. Springsteen, Michael Jackson, Kurt Cobain. Everybody came in. I gave everybody my demo. And one day a record executive came in. I knew his name from a magazine. I gave him my tape, and that's how I got my first record deal. And then they dropped me from that deal. But you know what? I just had to keep going and keep going. I ended up working for Linkin Park, as you guys know. And it's all in the book, all these wacky stories. It's like colorful characters, twists and turns. It's like a movie. We just don't know the plot, but that's all right.
Did you get Final Jeopardy right?
I didn't. You want to know the question?
Yeah, I do.
All right, listen at home, kids. I was up by so many points that there was no way I could lose. So I only bet $1. This is the question. I remember it verbatim from VH1 Rock and Roll Jeopardy. The category is women singers. She had 10 top 10 hits in the 80s. She is a member of the Royal British Army, and she starred in the biggest movie of 1978. Who is it?
Diana Ross?
British Army.
Tina, no. So they'd have to be British, right? Do they have to be British?
Yeah.
It's not Kim Wilde. She only had one big hit.
Olivia Newton-John.
Because of Australia. Balls.
Yeah,
That's a tough
Good question.
I know, not only
part
are
of the Commonwealth.
Not only are the criminals there, they have future pop stars. Yeah. So I got it wrong. So the movie was Grease and a lot of hits but I'm glad you asked me that. I got that one wrong. No one ever seems to get it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is hard, man.
So
totally. Well, I love being on game shows. There's two things I never turn down: sex or a chance to be on TV. Thank you.
Well, we're putting you on TV, just so we're clear. This is again family show. So some of the people who JT has written with are Uncle Cracker, Smile, Kenny Chesney, Somewhere With You, Bart, The End of the World, Keith Urban, Somewhere in My Car. Got a lot of somewheres in these song titles. Blake Shelton's Sangria, Jake Owens, Alone With You, and Darius Rucker's Beers and Sunshine.
Woo! Yes, and I wrote, my best songs are co-written. I wrote that with Darius, Beers and Sunshine. Of course, Smile. I wrote with Uncle Cracker. He was chain smoking. My eyes were as red as the Netflix logo by the end of it. But we wrote like 4 or 5. He didn't know I was from Detroit. He had just heard some songs that I had made a demo of, and our friend Ted Metry again gave it to him. And we went up to Cracker's Cottage and we wrote like 4 or 5 probably so-so songs. I'd never had a hit song before. I was just so excited to be there. And on the last day, I'll never forget it. Like the whoa, the light from heaven. Cracker just said, "What about a song called Smile?" And so we started it, and he came up with the best line. Cracker said, "Cooler than the flip side of my pillow." Now, I had never heard that line before. And here's what's so hard about songwriting: to come up with a lyric that is so simple that everyone knows what you're saying, but you've never heard before. It's kind of like when you see a great comedian, Dave Chappelle says something funny and you're listening, and you're like, oh my gosh, he's talking about me. That's what I try to do in songwriting. And it sounds simple, but it's not. But, Cracker really, really changed my life. And I just give him all the credit in the world. He actually texted me recently. He said, "Man, thank goodness for Smile, JT. My little boy's kindergarten is as expensive as my daughter's college."
So how do you co-write a song? I mean, what are people looking for when they call you up? Are you a song doctor, or are you an idea man, or are you good with hooks? I mean, what is it?
You know what I'd say? Songs are like sausages. Don't watch them being made. Just enjoy them when they're done. So here's how we do it. In Nashville, songwriting is a full contact sport. We write down there 5 days a week. I always come prepared. So I have tons of titles in my phone. You get titles from movies, from breakups, from makeups, from books. And I just have titles in my phone, and I come in and they have ideas, everyone. And then it's like a think tank, and we just kind of kick ideas around. This is not a joke. My idea for Darius was the only BS I need is bikinis and sunshine, because I think I heard some girl say that somewhere. And I thought it's already a t-shirt waiting to happen. But Darius is not a superstar by accident. So we started working on it. I'd never met him before. And he said, what if it was more universal? What if it was the only BS I need is beers and sunshine? That happened about an hour into the write. And I was just like, that's so much better. So that's what writing a song is like. You're just kind of kicking the ideas around, kind of waiting for lightning to strike. Sometimes they come fast, sometimes they don't. But it's the magic of how it happens, the mystery how it happens is what keeps you in love with it, because you never know what's going to happen. I've written a lot of bad songs, but you have to get to the good ones.
Now the book Party Like a Rockstar, I feel like we've left out one of the craziest stories is the stories of your parents and your biological father, who is Jay Thomas. I mean, I think a lot of people know who Jay was, by actor in the Cheers. Is that what he's best known? I know him from doing radio. I've heard him do lots of radio. But can you share that story, because it's pretty wild? Reconnection.
My birth certificate is an apology from a condom company. It's hanging on the wall in between my gold albums. It brings a tear to your eye, doesn't it? So I was adopted at birth. My parents, Larry and Kendra Harding, I wouldn't trade them for anything in the world. My dad went to Michigan State. He caught a touchdown in the Rose Bowl, people. That's right. I was voted most likely to be the water boy at Grosse Pointe South. But anyway.
I was the runner-up.
Yeah. They never knew who my biological parents were. And, anything like that. And then I met my biological mother when I was in my early 20s, and we talked for a few months on the phone. I never had a longing. There was nothing missing. She wanted to find me. I was curious. And she said, "I want to tell you who your biological father is." And I knew she wasn't kidding. I just knew she wasn't. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. And she said, "He's an actor." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, he was on the television show Cheers." So like the Terminator scanning a room for a human, my brain was in overdrive.
Saying, not Norm, don't be Norm, don't be Norm, don't be Norm.
Exactly. I was going through the cast of Cheers for someone that looked like, and I yelled to my roommate, "I'm going to be rich. My biological dad is Ted Danson." The whole room erupted. And she said, "This is a true story." She said, "No, it's Jay Thomas, who was a big DJ at the time in LA. 1 block from my apartment, 7 stories high on the side of a building. I have a picture of it. Was Jay Thomas's face on the body of a woman, and it said, 'We apologize for Jay Thomas because he was in a lot of trouble on the radio.'" Mr. Holland's Opus, the movie was out. Those billboards were everywhere. I mean, it's such a bad movie. I'm surprised Jay didn't write it and star in it. But that's what happened. We were like two long-lost fraternity brothers. He has two sons that I'm best friends with. So it was really the best case scenario. But he hated music. He said Dylan is a moron. The Beatles are hippie freaks. Elvis is a thief of black music. Jay Thomas said to me, if a song comes to me without a bag of cocaine or money, I ain't playing it. And I was like, okay, then. All right.
Yeah, it's like, so that's why they put me up for adoption.
You've got his inflection a little bit, right, JT?
Oh, my God.
You absolutely, his voice was lower, but you have his inflection a little bit, the pattern.
Isn't that wild? Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, the nurture versus nature, right? Isn't that amazing?
Bizarre, yeah.
Well, and what about the JT? That's his initials. How did that come about?
Yeah,
That's just,
I
mean,
know
your adoptive
this.
parents didn't know who your biological dad was, right?
Exactly. And I know this sounds unbelievable. His real name is John Thomas Terrell. My name is John Thomas Harding, but I was named after my grandfather, the Hart, like nothing to do with Jay Thomas. Everyone called him JT his whole life. Now, ML brought this up earlier. Jay thought maybe I was a scammer because he was on a show at that time and I went to see it. And this is in my book. It's great. So Jay sent his buddy out to sit next to me to see if I was a scammer. And in Los Angeles, if maybe people know this, before these shows like Friends or whatever, they have a comedian come out to warm up the audience off camera. This guy was terrible. So I started heckling him. I said, dude, your joke should be told on airplanes. That way the audience can't leave. The crowd was just cracking up. Jay Thomas's buddy, who was a spy, went right backstage and Jay was like, well, what's he doing? What's he doing? And he said, oh, no, that's your son for sure. That's your son.
Oh, wow.
When did you? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so you developed a strong relationship with your dad. Was he any help getting you breaks? I mean, because he's in the entertainment business, right? He's a DJ.
No.
You're a songwriter. I mean, don't just say, hey, Dad, how about help a brother out here?
No, because I found out quickly that music business doesn't work like that. But what was an incredible help to Jay, incredible help to me, Jay understood my longing and my passion to be in the spotlight, even though I like music and he did acting. I mean, every time I open the fridge and the light comes on, I sing for 20 seconds, And so that, because, everyone's like, oh, why do you want to be a rock star? Who cares? Just go do something else. And I was like, why doesn't anyone understand this? So that was great about meeting Jay because he really understood what it's like to be in the gauntlet of the music business. And like, I'm not famous and I'm not a TV star, but those were really great conversations. But no, he didn't help at all, but he had big radio shows and he would come on and say, listen, give your kids up for adoption. And when they're a success, welcome them back into the family like I have with JT, because I'd already had a hit song, I think, by the time we met.
Okay.
I have a question for you, JT.
Yeah, go for it.
Did you hear his fabulous Lone Ranger story in person before he told it on David Letterman?
No, because I don't know if I knew that story before that. But what's funny, and once again, it is in my book, I did go with him to David Letterman a few times, and I got thrown out of the show during a taping. That's probably, I don't want to give that story away because I can't explain it as well as I did in the book. But yeah, Jay would take me to the show every Christmas he did, and it was fantastic. But no, I didn't know that story. But I do have pictures of Jay with the big giant white man Bob Ross afro.
Oh,
Thank God for that.
That's awesome.
I know you don't want to give the whole story away, but do you accept today the reason you got kicked out of Letterman? Like, do you understand why? I mean, I don't even know what happened, but do you understand why you were kicked out? And do you think it's bullshit, or was it totally appropriate?
Yeah, I'll tell you part of the story for inquiring minds out there. I caused a little ruckus at the David Letterman show. I wasn't supposed to, and because I was, trying to get noticed. So Jay forbid me to ever contact Letterman or anyone that worked there. I was uninvited forever, Jay said. So I forgot about it. 5 or 6 months later, I was watching David Letterman, and he had a very much older woman on. He was apologizing to the woman because her son was a comedian. I forget his name. His act was so ahead of its time that Letterman had cut that comedian out of the show. And then the guy died. He was a young guy. You probably Google his name. David Letterman was apologizing to his mom. I just got a little chill because he said, I should have had your son on. It wasn't fair of me to cut him off. So I saw that. So I sat down and wrote David Letterman an apology. I just said, I see you on TV and you're classy and you're funny. I had no right to interrupt your show. I just mailed it to the David Letterman show in New York, thought it would be lost in the mail. About 5 days later, I get a FedEx package. I held it over the steam like I used to open Christmas presents, trying to see what it was because I didn't want to rip what was inside. And it's a letter. I have it hanging on my wall, handwritten from David Letterman. He said, "I'm a fan of your father's. You're welcome back anytime." And in the 30 years on television, no one's ever caused a ruckus like that. So we have that between us or something. It meant the world to me. And I would never do it again, but I just love that he wrote me back. I hope this all makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
So that's a story worth buying the book for. But JT, you know, obviously you're doing very well. I know from trying to get a book sold, it is almost impossible. So there's a big success there. You've written hit songs. There's a big success there. I imagine you're living pretty well now, but talk to us a little bit about those years where it wasn't so good, because I think one of the real values of this book is it's really easy to see people at the top of the mountain, but nobody really thinks about or talks about how many times you tried to summit it and fell down and then had to get back up and try again. And a lot of people keep climbing and never make it to the top. But you are here both to share your story, but I think also to inspire and to give people, you know, a little jolt of perseverance.
Yeah, well, you're so right. I mean, anything, whether you're a lawyer or a plumber or working at a hospital, I mean, it all takes a lot of work. I moved out to LA. I never had any money. I always had a job. And so, you know what I would do? I would go down to Ralph's grocery store. I would get this big thing of generic mayonnaise and generic tuna fish and a loaf of bread the size of a water ski. And then my roommate and I would dump all the mayonnaise in the garbage bag and dump all the tuna fish. We took the shelves out of this old refrigerator. And then anytime I was hungry, I would take 2 pieces of bread and scoop out the tuna fish from the garbage bag. The garbage bag was clean. And I would eat tuna fish sandwiches for night after night. It's amazing. I still love sushi. And I just worked any job I could. I worked at the Chinese theater. I worked at yogurt places. I worked for bands. I just had something in me. I just did not want to give up. And you just have to keep going, you know, and you have to give, if you're trying to get into the music business, you have to give everything to it because there's so many people that want it. If you don't put everything else, if you don't put it in front of everything else, someone else in line is just going to do it. But that's another reason why I love Nashville. It's an incredibly nurturing city. Everyone helps each other. We're competitive, but there's songwriters that are playing open mic nights literally at like the Burger King or at empty bars or somewhere with Tim McGraw and Garth Brooks, but everyone gets along. Everyone gives each other advice. It's incredible. I say about when I was in LA, I felt like God picked up America like a bath mat and shook it, and everyone sane hung on. Everyone else like me landed in LA. You know, everyone out there was just on the climb and full of ego. So it's great to be in Nashville. It's a small town in a big city, I like to say.
What was the lowest point for you?
This podcast, actually.
Great answer.
Well, again, David Hall, Luke Nowacki, The Butchery, you know, you give them your business, but this JT Harding guy, just screw that book. Forget it.
Yeah. All right. So listen, for me, losing a record deal was beyond heartbreaking. I didn't know that record companies sign people, make records. I made a record in New York City. I was broke. I get flown to New York. I make a record with John Mellencamp's band. They didn't put it out. I was heartbroken. But I got back up on the horse, worked for Rockstar. But my lowest point, the great band, Linkin Park, they're so nice. They're so great. I'm their assistant. They're really low maintenance. They're all happily married, and they know that I'm a songwriter. I never talked to them about my music. I know that that's not the way to do it, but they had a record label. That's why I was working for them. They decided to let me open up for them. So I'm in Kansas. I'll never forget it. It was the band, I think, Slipknot with all the masks on. And boy, when they took their masks off, I realized why they wore the masks. And then with Linkin Park, and I went on before them. I went on in between those two bands with an acoustic guitar. Exactly. And I got to tell you, if you're listening out there, people, if you've never stood on stage in a bright white spotlight holding a guitar and heard 30,000 people screaming, "You suck," it's quite an experience. You know, it gives you chills. Anything not tied down was being thrown at me. And so I said to the crowd, I was like, "All right, hang on a second. Do you people like Ozzy Osbourne?" They were like, "Ah." I said, all right. Here's a little Joan Osborne. What if God was one? It freaking rained hell on me. A quarter hit me in the eye. And this picture's in my book. I wish I had it here. I'm bleeding. There's blood rushing down. The crowd starts cheering. I think I'm winning them over. Little did I know that Chester Bennington from Linkin Park had walked out on stage behind me, and everyone's going crazy now for him. He puts his arm around me and he's kind of laughing like, the first time we both got drunk and I'm bleeding, and he takes me off the stage. And I got, a couple stitches, and he scolded the audience, which he didn't have to. But I looked in the mirror. It was like looking at a funhouse mirror. I was so out of it. And I thought to myself, what am I doing? That, I think, was my lowest point. But here's the thing. The next day in the newspaper, a huge picture of Chester and I'm bleeding. And a little paragraph said, despite bleeding from the head, a one-man band called JTX, despite bleeding from the head, finished a promising 3-song set. And somebody saw that article, and that's how I ended up getting my writing deal in Nashville. So all of these failures just keep adding up to pushing you towards your dreams. So I'm glad I didn't lose an eye, man. I'd be like, Kid Rock's new DJ with the eye patch,
Wow. And Chester, man, it just seemed like an incredible guy. All the stories about him, of course, committed suicide, which is just horribly sad, but it's kind of those pitfalls, I guess, of the music industry, which, have you been able to avoid those? I mean, you've probably seen a bunch of them around you, I would think.
Yeah, I used to have a drug problem, but now I can afford it. No, just kidding. Just kidding. I don't know. I've had disappointments, but no really other problems or anything. And Chester was so kind, and I don't know what he was going through. I can't even really comment on that. That was after my time, but I've just always said, all right, I got to get up again. I got to keep going. I've definitely taken breaks. And listen, when I was in 8th grade in the Battle of Bands, I was like, look out, world, here I come. I'm going to destroy everybody with my posing and my pouting and Grosse Pointe. But definitely from 20 to 35, I was like, man, is this ever going to happen? So it's easy now to laugh about it, but many nights where I was like, wow, is this ever going to happen? But I'm real fortunate. And it wouldn't have happened if I didn't grow up in Michigan, seeing everybody work really hard, having all the great music. Now on everybody's iPad, they have every group ever. But I think Detroit was one of the first cities that had a rap station, a pop station, a country station, 3 rock stations all on the dial. People forget that, The Electrifying Mojo was the first DJ to ever play Prince on pop radio. I mean, think of that. So growing up in Detroit had all... I wouldn't, Howard Stern started there. I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't grow up in Detroit. I'll tell you that.
JT, I have a question for you. Getting back to your family for a second. How did your parents handle the relationship you developed with your biological parents?
Shawn, that's a great question. They were incredibly welcoming of it. I found out my brother Lance, who's great, in the book, he goes by his Native American name, Dances with Vodka. He was worried I wasn't going to come home for Christmas. And if they were worried about it, they didn't tell me. And then once they met Jay and met his kids and his wife, he's been remarried. He's been married 4 times. I couldn't ask him for any money. He'd given it all away. So everyone got along like gangbusters. And I just told my parents over and over, they would never, nothing could ever replace them. Jay and I were like long lost buddies. It's just like the 3 of you. It was just like buddies like that. But it's a great question.
We're buddies.
And a lot of people that have been adopted write me on Facebook, ask for advice, or they don't have a good situation. So it's pretty incredible how many people, the stories that it opens up.
And JT, I think one of the stories that we talked about before we went on the air is when Larry, your adoptive father, died, Jay did the eulogy, right? I mean, so that's a pretty strong bond, and that shows a lot of of how big both of those men were. That someone could let somebody else into their son's life who might be a threat, and then the guy who found out that somebody else helped make their son the man he is. That when he died, even though he was a big deal, he took the time to come and pay tribute to him. There's a lot of inspiring stories in this book, and it's not just about success and some great anecdotes, although it's full of those. I think there's a lot of pages in here that if you find yourself struggling, and as I'm trying to get back on track, I find myself struggling, and just listen to what you're talking about, I'm actually kind of thinking I maybe need a couple more failures because, I mean, seriously, shit doesn't come easy. Good stuff doesn't come easy. The stuff that other people can't do, that people do, it's only because they've been knocked down and they got up.
Yeah, exactly. And also, so going back, Jay, it was the first phone call I made when my dad passed away, which probably surprised me as well. And it's so funny that it was like the funeral was packed like a clown car. Everyone my dad ever knew was there. And this lady, a couple pews behind us, when Jay got up to speak, and Jay and I were going on all these TV shows, acting crazy as part of the David Letterman story. And this lady behind us whispered, "The Hardings hired an actor for the funeral. This family doesn't miss a trick." And it's kind of like, how did she not know that, Jay and I were connected? But it was very sweet. He said great things. And yeah, exactly. And fast forwarding, it never gets easier. I don't go back to Nashville today and all the doors are open. And everyone's like, let's just record a JT Harding song. I still have to try to write the best song in town that day. Who even knows what that song is going to be? So, or even putting a book out. It's like, hey man, let's get some promotion. Let me call ML. Let me talk to these people. Yeah. Once you're having some success, you just have to keep, pushing the gas. I guess that's just the way that the world works, but it's fun,
Yeah, well, now you're guaranteed a bestseller since you talked your way onto this show.
Yes.
You're it's all gravy from here, son. So
I
if you
can't
want
wait to see the kids at Defer Elementary, Bananas Magazine or Party Like a Rockstar.
Do you want Dynamite or Highlights? Which one are you going to get from the Scholastic Book Club? When I was growing up, we were poor as hell, but the one thing my mom always said is when that Scholastic Book Club came along, you can get as many books as you like, and we would always get Dynamite.
It was so exciting waiting for them. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I have a copy of Dynamite Magazine with Marc and Mindy on it, with Marc, and guess who's standing next to him on the cover? And I had it when I was a kid.
Jay Thomas.
Thomas. Yeah. We need some graphics for this podcast.
I know. Well, the funny thing is too, so after I met JT, he said, "Oh, can you find that picture you took?" And I thought, shit, man, I don't think they have an archives at Grosse Pointe South High School from 1985. And I said, I'll look around. And I thought, this is never going to happen. Well, then we got hit by the flood. And so as we're taking stuff out of the basement, I'm going through all these boxes of shit that I wouldn't have looked through until, actually probably my kids would have looked through if they even looked through them when I died. And there was the picture in there, along with some other pictures of Dirty Tricks and some pictures I shot of John Lowry, who's now John 5, who it turns out had played in a band with JT. He also played in a band with my brother. And they used to gig at this bowling alley, which on Sunday nights would be called the Falcon Rock Fortress. Can you give us a Falcon story before we let people know how they can see you when you come to Detroit and how they can buy your book?
I would love it. I'm listening to Wheels or WRF, the Falcon Rock Fortress. Then I see the ad in the paper, this eagle with guitars in its feet. I'm only in 8th grade, but we won the Battle of Bands. So we figured out somehow to get a gig at the Falcon Rock Fortress. My mom has to take us there to get us in. We pull up. And it says Falcon Lanes, and like the L is blinking, like the sun is too bright. And, I'm like, this is a bowling alley? So we go into the backstage. The couch looked like it had chicken pox. There were so many cigarette burns in it. And you could smell like beer. The other band had already set up on the stage. So we played on the floor. Now, of course, at the time, it felt like Madison Square Garden to me. But I was a little bit shocked that it was a bowling alley, the Falcon Lanes. I'm like, I thought it was going to be a castle from like an Yngwie Malmsteen video. But we played it and it was great and it was fantastic. And I got in a little, like I said, I was in, 8th grade or something. I got in a little scuffle with not fighting, of course, with the band, the grown-up band that were hairspraying their receding hairlines, and I got in a little trouble with them at that gig too, which was fun. So that's in the book. And you know what? They were probably great guys. Here's what their band was called. You guys probably remember them. Wizard.
Wow. Not Figures on a Beach. It was Wizard. Okay.
No. It wasn't Second Self. Gosh, I'm still trying to grow my hair like Andy Nera. That guy was a hero in high school.
Now, where was the Falcon? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember, but it was definitely on the highway a little ways.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it was a tough play. They had high school bands. I mean, there's these stories and more. And of course, when you see JT live, you're going to have a lot more stories, a chance to interact with him, a chance to get his book.
It would be so great if we found out that the ghoul was ML's real father. Wouldn't that be great?
Okay.
There's a lot of similarities there.
Yes, my real father is a horror show, but he was never on TV. So we'll do that for another episode. So Friday, March 4th, 8 p.m., 20 Front Street in Lake Orion. For $20, you can come see JT, hear some stories, buy his book. You can find out more about that gig at 248-783-7105. Their website is 2020frontstreet.com. That's one word. We will have a link to that on our website, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com. Or come out and see me, if I can get a ticket, at the Caju Cafe. I got to buy one because they're selling fast. This gig, you'll get to see JT and you'll get a book. That's 8 p.m. on Saturday, March 5th at the Caju Cafe. That's on Caju, not too far from where we grew up in. It's in Detroit. It's an East Side institution. They have some lanes too, but they're for feather bowling, not for big ball bowling.
The only thing louder than the bowling will be my jacket. Hey, you know what? Also, the 20 Front Street in Lake Orion, if you haven't been there, it's an incredible venue. It's very small, almost like church pews, but it'll be a wild, fun rock show. But all the money, the $20, goes to 20 Front Street because I know that quarantine and all that was very hard on them. So I can't wait to get there. I'll be singing all the hit songs I've written, like on an acoustic guitar with a couple of buddies backing me up. And the book will be there. Same thing at Caju Cafe. But I just, I'm so glad that these venues are still open, and I'm so excited to be back.
Can you work a Joan Osborne song in there for us?
Yeah, well, that's the only song of hers I know. Hey, you know what? Better king for a day than schmuck for a lifetime, I say, you know.
I'm on the latter track, so I'm glad you're on the former track. So, JT.
Thanks so much for having me, all you guys.
That's great. We're looking forward to seeing you when you get back in town. The name of the book is Party Like a Rockstar, The Crazy, Coincidental, Hard Luck, and Harmonious Life of a Songwriter by our own JT Harding. JT, great to see you again, and we will see you at the Caju and on Front Street. That's March 4th and March 5th. That's a Friday and a Saturday. Come on, make plans, get out there, support these
Shawn,
places.
Marc, thank you very much, and you'll know my book because the font on it and on the spine are replicas of WRIF stickers, baby. How can I not? Hey, guys, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for keeping the music and all the good vibes alive on the soul of Detroit.
Thanks, JT.
Thank you.
There you go.
Oh, man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
So even back in high school when JT definitely had kind of that rocker look in his eye, you know, sort of, you know, like, hey, man, kind of edgy, kind of punky in a place where the preppy handbook was like a Bible, he was always still a super nice dude, like a very easy guy to deal with, not standoffish or anything. So it's really great to see him having all this success. Although I must say I've never seen him quite that hyper.
What a story, though, man.
Oh, yeah. Well,
a hustler.
We scratched the surface, man.
Yeah,
the stories are great. I especially like that he clapped after his own stories.
Like he said, man, if somebody's going to clap.
Yeah, I think so too.
So
I think you should start doing that.
Now he just pats himself on the back.
No, every time I speak,
well, that's more of a metaphor, yeah.
Every time I speak, I hear applause. I thought that was understood, and I feel a little perspiration from the angels weeping. But so one of my daughters who gets uptight about stuff, she's like one of these crazy people who gets uptight about stuff, but then when she gets on stage, it's like a revelation. She did some stand-up in a talent show one time, and she told everybody to get up and start clapping. That was the first joke she told. People didn't really realize it at the time. And she said, well, great, no matter what happens, I can tell people I got a standing ovation at this gig.
That's a good way to start.
So sometimes, you got to get the applause however you can get it.
You do.
So yeah, 30,000 people telling you suck.
It's like pushing the car before you pop the clutch.
Who put him between Slipknot and Linkin Park and thought that was a good idea?
With a string guitar.
I could have told you that would have been the crowd would not have liked that.
Maybe Linkin Park was a little, mean-spirited. Maybe this was all part of a prank.
Chester saved him, though.
Maybe he was trying to play acoustic music in front of an audience that wanted Ozzy Osbourne.
That's exactly what it was, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I can compete with that story, except I haven't quite had 30,000 people tell me I suck.
I don't think that's manly enough, right?
It's much smaller groups.
That's what it comes down to.
So. A different type of music.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we are at our Geek of the Week, and Robin Folsom is our geek this week. Now, you probably don't know about Robin, but you may have heard her story because colleagues were preparing to congratulate her on her latest bundle of joy when something very strange happened. One of her colleagues said, hey, that baby bump, it looks like it's like detached from your body.
Oh.
Yeah. So this was not a preemie. This was a hustle. And so they reported she's a state employee. It appears that she was trying to tap into some paid family leave. And so they reported it. And then the inspector general started digging around. And then they said, oh, hey, wait a minute. you've been showing some pictures of your other baby. And then they said, well, wait a minute. The pictures appear to be inconsistent and depict children with various skin tones. So it looks like her other baby wasn't really her other baby, and she didn't even bother getting the same picture of her other not real baby.
Where did she share them on social media? Why even bother?
Yeah, I think it was just something that she probably passed around. People said, how's the kid? Because it's sort of like these people have the fake cancer scares. At some point, you either have to die or be cured. And if you're cured, you probably have to have some pictures of yourself bald and skinny and going to chemo. So it's like I guess it's literally a proof of life thing. So she had to keep up this artifice that she'd already had a kid. And no one really probably paid too much attention until they realized, oh, wait a minute, she's not having this kid. I wonder about those other kids. And
idiot.
I imagine people got together and say, hey, wait, oh yeah. And then, there's always when a scammer starts to be revealed, people start saying, oh yes. And
then you connect all the dots.
Yeah. And it turns out,
how much trouble is this lady in?
Well, it turns out that, really neighbors did figure that guy next door was a serial killer. You just haven't talked to enough neighbors, or the neighbors don't want to be candid because they're like, until this guy's convicted and put away for life, I'm not going to tell people about the missing cats in the neighborhood. Well, she is in a shitload of trouble because on February 10th, a Fulton County grand jury, that's in Georgia, indicted Folsom on 3 felony counts of making false statements and 1 felony count of identity fraud, which is weird. Did she identify? Did she fraudulently identify a pregnant woman, or is it because maybe the other baby got benefits? I'm not really sure what happened there. But she's facing a maximum, and get this, folks who would like to get some extra time off, some extra paid time off, she's facing up to 25 years in prison and up to $103,000 in fines. I think the extra $3,000 is just because they can. That's a weird number to come up with. But if she's found guilty of all these charges, she'll be getting some time off at our expense, but it will be in the big house and not in the baby's nursery. So Robin Folsom, you, who may be singing the Folsom Prison Blues, are our Geek of the Week.
See you again. There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
So, we like to invite people to nominate songs for Room 7609, where we take a look at new wave bands that had a great tune that maybe you missed, or bands that you overlooked in the first place. And JT, he's our resident music expert, so who's to argue with JT? This week, he suggests that we play China by Red Rider, and afterwards, we're going to debate the merits of this as a new wave song. But remember, JT knows what he's talking about.
Danced with wind and danced with fire, killed the truth and called the liar. Bleeding in its mystery, then the moon began to fall. Dreamers are not all they seem, sleeping in her silent dream. She locks it all inside and hides it all away. All you hear, and strong in voice, it's clear. Unforgotten memory, and the mood begins to call. Called you right and called you wrong. Time to shadow sings your song. Don't lock it all inside and hide it all away. trying to watch her. Someone's getting on China, she's not coming to me. As the world goes through China, as the world waits outside. The streets covered in China, my dogs are covered in China. Walking, flirting through China, my China isn't to me. China, China. Calling out to your history, is that the way it'll always be? China, China. Questions on in my head and then answers gone till I don't know when. China, China.
Why wouldn't that be new wave?
You know, it feels a little more ballady to me, almost like just kind of straight up poppy rock from that era. and if you look up Red Rider, they're listed as, you know, album oriented rock / new wave. But the only person who probably likes Room 7609, who's been on the show more than Shawn and JT, is Jerry Vile. And he loves that. And he suggested some good songs, and some of which we'd already played. So I felt pretty good about that. JT, when I invited him to pick a song, the first thing he suggested was A Girl in Trouble Is a Temporary Thing by Romeo Void, which we've already played. So we're on the right track. Then he came up with China by the Red Rockers, which I thought was an interesting piece. I actually bought Neruda, which was one of their albums that came out in the early 80s, and I think Warehouse Records in Ann Arbor.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of great tunes on it. The front man is a guy named Tom Cochrane. They're a Canadian band, and you probably know them from...
Life is a Highway, Tom Cochrane?
Life is a Highway, Tom Cochrane. Yes, that's what he did when he was a solo act. The hit that Red Rockers had was Lunatic Fringe.
Red Rider, right? Or
Red Rider. I'm sorry, Red Rider.
Yeah, I remember Lunatic Fringe.
It's hard to keep those
Which
two
doesn't
separate.
sound nearly as new wavy as China.
Right, and new wave to me, China's kind of okay, but this is another one of our new wave tunes that has appeared in Miami Vice. A lot of these tunes are in the background of Miami Vice, which I never thought was a very new wave show, but it's kind of weird how the 80s is sort of a melange, which is a French word for shit mixed together.
Well, people associate Phil Collins probably more than anything with that show in terms of the music, right?
Yeah, because of the drums, Yeah,
and Jan Hammer.
Oh,
he did the soundtrack, right?
Yeah, the only musician
name,
named
though.
by Shakespeare.
What?
Oh,
yeah. Hand me Jan Hammer, so I can.
Oh my God!
Smite thou. I think it was in Hamlet. Did you remember that part when he goes after his dad?
No one remembers that.
Yeah.
No,
just snobs.
That's good though.
When he had the poison goblet.
Nice reference.
No, I think it was a poison sword. Anyway, so JT says it's new wave. Sounds like Shawn is buying it. Sounds like Marc is buying it.
It's all right.
I'm
it's
willing,
definitely new wave.
I'm willing to let it pass, but I think actually I like a lot of other stuff by Red Rider better. There's Human Race is one of their
Red Rider or Red Rockers? Because you're confusing the two now.
Well, he called them Red Rockers, but it's Red Rider.
No, those are two different bands.
But does Red Rockers have China?
Yeah.
What?
That's Red Rockers did China. Red Rider is a totally different band.
So no wonder Lunatic Fringe sounds nothing like what we just
different
heard.
band.
Okay.
So next week on Room 7, well, but you know what? When JT and I were corresponding, I said we haven't played Red Rockers, but I bought Neruda at Warehouse Records in Ann Arbor, and I love Can't Turn Back. He didn't correct me. So next week on Room 7609, stay tuned for what's turning into our China month. I think we had China Crisis to start the month. We will be playing China by Red. So what are the odds that you have two bands with Red in the name, and the second word is R, and they both have a song called China?
Yeah, and they're definitely new wave. Red Rockers, not Red Riders.
So I think we have played Red Rockers, and because you were saying to me before,
I thought we had played them
I think
before.
we've played Red Rockers. Yeah, we've played China before. I said, no, we haven't. So I was thinking Red Rider because...
I don't know, it was worth it just to hear you confuse them. Right, Shawn?
So
Yes,
just to set the record straight, I want to apologize to Matthew Stafford.
Tom Cochrane had nothing to do with China.
What do you want to apologize to Matthew Stafford for?
Tom Cochrane had everything to do with China.
No, that's Red Rockers.
Why do you want to apologize to Matthew Stafford?
Did you play Red Rockers or Red Rider?
I thought I played Red Rockers.
Oh, maybe you did. What did I tell you to play? This show. No, I said play China by Red Rider.
Oh, okay.
We'll get this straightened out. I promise. By next week.
Too bad Red Rockers did that song we played.
Shawn comes back and he immediately creates chaos.
Why are you apologizing to Matthew Stafford? Can he not leave his house? Is he curl up in a fetal position in his corner waiting on your apology? What's going on?
Well, is that what you were?
No, I'm curious. What?
Well, because there was some concern that it took me too long to apologize to Matthew Stafford before. I just want to say that I promptly and without hesitation apologized to Red Rider, Red Rockers, and everybody who was confused by what just happened.
And Matthew Stafford. Did anybody talk?
You know who doesn't apologize promptly?
Who?
Juwan Howard. I knew that was coming.
Oh, yeah, right. Hey, that did take too long.
That was a big problem.
It was a big problem. He could have changed that. Well, I know we're going to talk about that in a second, but real quickly, did either of y'all see the drunk Matthew Stafford?
No.
What do you mean?
During the parade,
he got up that version? Yeah, I thought you meant there was a bit or something. Yeah.
Never seen that version.
I know, it's great.
It was.
We had nothing to celebrate for 10 years.
Well, no, he was just being himself.
He was very guarded.
Absolutely.
Here. Did you hear him do the podcast with his wife?
He got criticized here for how he wore his hat. I mean, come on.
I had to tell you, I've grown to really like him because I thought, he's never going to win a Super Bowl. This guy,
Not here.
He's a #1 draft pick. He's never going to live up to that, blah, 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 blah. I mean, all those stupid hot takes that you have to have when you're doing sports radio. And it really blinded me to what kind of person. He's a really good dude. And then hearing him post Super Bowl do that podcast with his wife, it's like, oh yeah, I could hang out with this guy. This guy's a fucking blast because he was hammered on that podcast.
And then you see why
he was bitching about having to go to Disney.
All the former players of his, mostly Lions,
they all returned to the Super Bowl.
In the week or two, a couple of weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, we're all talking about how great he was and how great he was in the locker room. And we're like, well, you don't see it, and they lost, but we got a glimpse of that.
There's a lot to like about the guy.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, he was criticized here for not being assertive enough, for not being a leader, for being kind of bland, for wearing his hat backwards on the sidelines. I mean, it seemed like there's nothing.
Which is just picking on him, man, really.
Well, it was, but I think one of the reasons why he took a lot of heat, and maybe it wouldn't have made a difference because when the team doesn't win, it doesn't matter what a great guy you are, but he seemed to be so guarded. I mean, I think no one got to see.
That's refreshing these days.
Behind the veil, except for maybe Hank Winchester, who actually was hilarious on the Drew and Mike show when you guys called him in L.A.
He was assaulted by Jeff Bezos.
And he was at the party with Kelly and with that receiver who used to be
Chris Durham.
Yeah, who used to play at Georgia, where Matthew Stafford did win that bowl game.
So are we gonna let the feedback get us into Howard, or are we gonna?
No. So first, we're gonna thank our generous supporters, including Bryant, who gives to this show so regularly. It should be called Bryant's Soul of Detroit. He and Kristen and a couple other people are really appreciated here because I think everybody knows the media struggles and sponsorships are hard to come by. So we rely to some extent on the generous donations of our listeners. And so we're grateful for that continued support. If you're one of those people who would like to support us, or maybe you've just come into a lot of money and have no idea what to do with it, or maybe you just feel like it's time to do your bit to support the show. This is our 142nd episode. If you've been on the sidelines waiting to throw a few pennies our way, it's really easy. Right, Mark?
Yes, mlsolodetroit.com, little donate button. We do greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, just hit it. PayPal will do all the rest. And we also accept sponsorships. If you'd like to sponsor a particular episode, if you'd like to sponsor us for a month or a couple weeks, if you have an event coming up, if you have a product or a business that you'd like to raise the profile, we are one of the top news commentary podcasts in the country and occasionally in the Ukraine. Which may change, not because we won't be popular, but because there might not be a Ukraine. So, and by the way, we do show up in the charts in Canada. So I'm probably going to get some calls saying, Red Rider's different, eh? So those calls would come into 313-288-9070. That's 313-Butterfield-89070, where you can leave us a voicemail. In theory, nobody ever does, but we'd love it because we would play it on the air. So test our theory. And you can always write to us at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. That's what Jim did when he said, a person at work grabbed my elbow to get my attention. So I slapped him. I was immediately fired. Bright side, I can now listen to you, Marc and Shawn record the podcast live instead of waiting to listen on my drive home.
That guy clearly did not make $2.5 million. He must not have been that important to his company.
I think Jim is speaking with tongue in cheek.
Of course he is.
A cheek that if he had turned, he wouldn't have gotten in trouble. No, I'm talking about Juwan Howard now, who should have turned.
I don't want to get. Look, what Juwan did was wrong, but to equate what happens in the world of sport to what happens in your office is
Brian Dickerson did that today.
A little
He's
ludicrous.
An op-ed columnist for the Detroit Free Press. He did that today.
Made him the same. What if you did that in your?
He just
office
talked about
space?
He's lucky he was in the sports world because you get
different.
second chances.
Well, he's also an investment of about $2.5 million by the university to be a head coach. I mean,
I'm not sure the money has anything to do with it.
Well, but you're not going to bail
in
on it.
regards
You're not
to
gonna bail
that
on it for that.
Well, this is his second time. I'd say third time. There's no question.
You're right. It cannot happen again.
Strike 3. Most people don't get 3 strikes, and of course, there's strikes that he got because
first time getting physical, but second time losing his temper.
Sure.
Well,
yeah, you're right. Yeah, because he didn't punch Turgeon.
Yeah, no. I mean,
nobody had to be held back.
Sure.
So I guess I look at this and I say, okay, I'm not that anybody asked me, but I'm okay that he's only suspended for the rest of the season. But as a coach, you really have to set a tone and example for your players. And one of the things there are 2 things that really bothered me. First of all, after the game, his the way he handled us. Complete disaster. I mean, absolute wrong way to do it. But second of all, and I guess chronologically, first of all, after a game, when you're handshake line, if you've had some kind of conflict during the game and you're bitching at somebody and somebody touches your arm or grabs your elbow to say, hey, coach, I want to let you know what happened, or hey, coach, what's the big deal? You should not lose your shit. And I hear him getting some grace because somebody touched him. It's like, really? Basketball is a physical sport. You're in a handshake line with a bunch of people. If somebody says, hey, I want to try and tell you what happened, and you lose your shit,
I really think
that's bad.
I really think the slap happened because when Krabenhoff, the assistant coach for Wisconsin, came in, he shoved Terrence Williams.
He did.
And I think he was trying to honestly grab and it turned into a slap, but you can't do that anyway.
No, you don't touch another team's player. And that guy, in hockey, third man, you get the gate. And that Wisconsin assistant coach should get a raft of shit. But Howard said one of the things that set him off.
And that, I think, is bull. That's the only piece of real bullshit.
I thought guard should have gotten the game because I don't agree with Mike.
But what? So a man touches you.
He got fined $10,000, right?
A man touches you and you lose your mind. He
violated the sportsmanship policy according to the Big Ten. He got fined $10,000, but they were too soft.
That Wisconsin's paying for.
Exactly. And they made that very clear. When a guy walks by you and says, "I'll remember that," doesn't even look at you and keeps walking, and you know he's that heated, let him go.
Yeah, pretty much.
And he didn't touch him. He stopped him.
He did stop him.
And there's a difference.
And then Juwan should not have grabbed him and pointed his finger at him.
Juwan quickly escalated.
Honestly,
Juwan had a fistful of his jersey and put his finger in his face. Juwan had no excuse to do any of this.
No, and Juwan honestly should not have been that mad about the timeout.
No, he shouldn't. He was pressing.
Because who cares?
Even though he said it wasn't a press.
There's a problem.
5-man pressure.
Juwan Howard has a problem that we've seen. And I'll tell you what, I've been in a lot of handshake lines after a lot of nasty games.
Me too.
And if somebody grabs you and says, hey, I want to tell you something, you don't lose your shit. Now, if they tell you something like, hey, I want to tell you something, your mother's a whore, then you drop them.
There's part of me that likes the fire, with what happened last year in Marc Turgeon.
I think it's fine that he turned.
But
yes, I think it's. I didn't like he said, "I'll fucking kill you" to Turgeon. But I think it's fine that he turned to guard and said, "Don't fucking touch me," which is, I think, exactly what he said.
And then if guard lets go and moves on, then we're done.
And
right?
they did, but to Mark's point, it was 15 seconds later, and he was still so heated.
Yeah,
and then we saw Krabenhoff kind of moved. I don't know if he shoved him. Is it fair to call what he did a shove? It's a little inconclusive, but he definitely touched him and grabbed him, and you can't do that. To your point, you can't.
Yeah. So if guard is like, hey, I want to tell the other coach something because they're going to do their press conference. They're going to go they're going to the locker room. They're going to do their press conference. They're getting on the bus. I have one chance to tell Juwan, hey, dude, it's for my scrubs. I don't want my scrubs to get shown up. You understand that, right? I think if he impedes him to say something like that, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, when Juwan Howard says, get the hell out of my face, at that point, everybody pulls back. And so this assistant coach, that's the dude for Wisconsin. I'd give him a couple games. I'd give him the rest of the season. Actually,
he didn't get fined.
No, right. But I'm just saying that when two guys are going to fight, you let them fight. And if they decide not to fight, you don't come in here and say, "Let me pour a little gas on this."
No, you pull your own guys off.
Yeah, and I would almost say that dude is worse than Juwan, because he had enough time to see this situation was red hot, and he decided to get involved. But Juwan Howard's a coach. He sets the tone. It's not his first time.
Absolutely.
And you touch me after a game, I may step off. I say step off, and if you don't, then we go toes. Well, but this whole thing about I got touched, come on, man.
No. He made the mistake. He made the mistake after the first of all. He made a couple of mistakes to me. He made right after the game in the post-game news conference. One, he did not apologize. He should have said, no matter what happened before, whatever I thought led up to that, I had no business and no excuse taking a swing. He should have said that right off the top before he took a single question. The second thing is when he said I was defending himself. I was defending myself. It made it sound like that's what he was doing when he took a swing at Krabbenhoft.
Right.
When I think what he meant was he was talking about guard and grabbing guard and saying, "Don't fucking touch me."
Yeah.
So it made it sound like he carried that over, and I think that was an enormous mistake. I don't understand why Ward Manuel or whomever else at Michigan, because they had 10 minutes before he got to that press conference, weren't on the cell. Maybe I'm sure they did talk.
Yeah.
But why didn't he coach him about you need to go in there and show contrition?
Well, why don't you FOIA those cell phone records to see if a call was made? Because it went to voicemail because Juwan doesn't seem like he want to talk to anybody.
That's entirely
and we know it. Possible. We know at the University of Michigan, as at Michigan State, and at most major universities, the athletic director is not the boss.
No, of course not.
It's the superstar coach. No. It's the superstar coach. A coach can get an AD fired. I don't know that an AD can get a coach fired.
No. The decision...
Is that not true?
His 5 games...
Jim Harbaugh and Juwan Howard are not bigger than Ward Emanuel.
No, they are.
Well, of course they are, but they're not bigger than the university.
Yeah, I don't think...
That's right.
I don't think Brady Hoke was bigger than Dave Brandon.
Yeah, it depends on what you're doing. It depends on what you're doing as a coach.
Battle of the Ants.
Well, no, you're right.
Here's the other thing for me real quickly, if I may. That when he took the swing, he took the swing, and Krabbenhoft... Because what Krabbenhoft did wasn't violent necessarily as much as, and maybe the Big Ten didn't fine him or suspend him because they were they didn't feel comfortable parsing out content or figuring out intent. Sorry, in that scrum, right? Mm-hmm. Was Krabbenhoft in there immediately to try to de-escalate, and then it got out of? I don't know. Is there enough
to believe?
No, I'm with you, but I think that's what happened on the Big Ten's end.
Parsing out who got the thesaurus for their birthday.
No, sorry, I meant trying to figure
Shawn,
it out.
Did the University of Michigan add
No, parsing out was the right term.
But when he took the swing, what happened? All of a sudden, 3 players then took swings. So Juwan Howard's swing, is directly responsible more than anything else for 3 players taking swings, and that's what I wrote about today. In my column about I think the reason those 3 guys only got 1 game. Let me just say this. If Moussa Diabate, the freshman forward for Michigan, had been in a handshake line and just randomly took a swing at a Wisconsin player, he probably would have been suspended the rest of the season.
Probably charged with assault, too.
Right?
Yeah.
But because he did it in the larger context of his coach, he only got 1 game. Same with Terrence Williams, same with Jacoby Neath, I think, the guard for Wisconsin. Because Howard had set that tone, and because in our society, even though they're technically adults in some ways, they're kids in a lot of other ways. And I wrote that in the column today. They can drive a car, but they can't rent one, right? They can vote, but they can't buy a beer. They can buy a lottery ticket, but they're not allowed in a casino.
They're not employees.
Right. So in our society, we don't consider a 19 and 20. They're in this netherworld between adulthood and childhood, and it's up to the Howards of the world to set the tone.
Well, and earlier in that game, Devontae Jones, the point guard, is that his name? Did I mess up his name?
No, that's right.
Devontae Jones, right? He got fouled. The guy kicked him. Wisconsin's guy kicked him. Do you remember that early?
Was it Brad Davison that kicked him?
Oh boy, I can't remember which guy kicked him.
He's got a rep as a dirty player.
What did Jones do? He walked away.
Yeah,
so it's like,
well, what did
players do?
What did Ohio State's coach do the week before when Howard called a timeout with 35 seconds left and his team was down 14 or 15 or whatever it was in Chrysler Arena?
It's funny. I appreciated your column because I hadn't heard anybody write that about the players because I got really annoyed, and this is just the way social media is afterwards. And I agree with you, ML. But for people to go, hey, he was assaulted, he's just defending his honor, is fucking ludicrous. As is, he should be fired, I thought was, the other end of the scale, which is ludicrous. But then to see all these think pieces coming out that like, well, what if he was white and he was black and this happened, it's like, you know what?
You should see my inbox.
That didn't fucking happen though. He is black, Guard is white. That's the situation is what it is.
Okay,
Why
real
do we
quick.
have to examine it?
Okay, real quick, because my inbox this morning has been full of, well, if he were white.
But he's not.
He would be fired. But let's just tackle that just for 1 second. Let's just say real quickly.
Woody Hayes wasn't. Woody had to push 2 guys.
Bobby
to get fired.
Knight wasn't.
No. Let's just say that's true. Let's just say that's true. And I'm not saying that's true. I don't agree with that at all. But let's just say it is, for argument's sake, that if he were white, right, that he would have been fired. Or if Guard had been the one to take the swing, that he would have been fired. Why are we so upset about that? It was 400 years one way. And so we're going to lean the other way for a few years, and we're going to be that mad about that? We're going to be that entitled? We're going to be the grievance is going to be that strong?
I think
let it balance out a little bit.
Well,
Jesus Christ.
It's one incident, and I would just rather look at the incident as it is.
Well, nobody wants to be caught on the unfair side. Nobody wants to be caught on the makeup side. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Plenty of people are fine with that. What do you mean nobody? Sorry, I don't mean to take it out on you.
I've had 100.
I've just been listening to it all morning.
I've had 142 episodes of Injustice. I just hoped it would spin my side.
So what are most people emailing to you that, if he was white, he would have been
I'm starting to get that. And part of this is because Jason Whitlock, former Ann Arbor News column, who's a right-wing, whatever. He's completely changed the way he looks at the world in the last 10 years.
Which, whatever, that's fine. It's fine. It's what he does. Maybe it is for money. It's worked for him. If that's the way.
In any case, he wrote a column yesterday.
Jason Whitlock is black. He's become kind of the conservative black.
He has, and he wrote a column yesterday saying this very thing: that Howard's lucky he's not white, or he'd been fired.
He did leave out, the fact that Michigan, because he was saying because it's Michigan, this liberal institution. It's like they fired 2 black coaches before because it's sports.
But here's the other bullshit.
It's sports. It's pretty
black, white. We can debate that, but I think we can't debate if he'd been a losing coach, he would have been fired, right? I mean, Juwan Howard has had success, so they're going to hold on to him a little longer. If he had been struggling and that happened, they might say,
I don't know.
Out you go.
I don't know if they would have fired him. I mean, even
maybe
if he was a losing coach. I don't know.
If he'd done it before,
sure.
If he takes a swing, the next time he takes a swing, he's gone.
It's over,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's done. He's not going to get 3 chances to do that. It's going to be one more.
Brian Ellerby might have gotten fired on the first punch because he ran a losing program. Gary Moeller, white guy, got fired for an incident that no one actually witnessed, where he was. I mean, we can't independently witness it. When he was drunk.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, it has happened to white coaches who have been fired after one incident. Now there may be a personnel file that says, behind it, but I think in sports, white and black, there definitely some stuff going on there, but it's winning and losing that saves your ass.
Yeah.
And if this had been the 3rd season in a row that Juwan Howard was not going to make the tournament, he would have been fired. Second incident, 3 losing seasons, black, white, plaid, Juwan Howard is gone. But he's been a successful coach. He's an icon with the program, and they're going to give him another chance.
That brings me to my next question for you, Shawn, because I can't figure out this answer because, they have a handbook in the Big Ten when something happens, and the discipline for this kind of event is 2 games. Did Michigan add 3 on, and the Big Ten's taking credit for it? Like, how does that work, do you think?
Well, my understanding is that they worked together. So if Michigan's involved in the process, then they can add whatever they want, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, or whatever word you want to use, but if they were working together, they could have suspended the rest of the season.
If there were 20 games left in the season, it wouldn't be a 20-game suspension. Would it still be 5? It just
That's a good question.
It almost works out too perfectly.
It might have been 10, but if you notice in the press
release, it might have been 2 if Michigan was running the Big Ten. If they were 1 victory away from winning the Big Ten.
No, I saw too much pushback from too many alums, Michigan alums.
Sure.
Who wanted him gone, right? Period.
Which is ludicrous, I think.
Right, but so there was too much push. There was no way he was just going to get a couple of games, no matter what his record was, right? That's
why 5 games left in the season was almost too perfect.
And then they left the door open to have him not coach after that, right? They're going to reconvene at the end of the regular season and decide
I didn't see that part.
Yeah, that was in.
It depends how these next 5 games go.
Maybe. But not.
Of course it does.
But not winning or losing. It depends on where to me, that's an excuse to say, let's take the political temperature in 3 weeks.
Yeah, but the political
and as the story moved on, and do we want to deal with all these questions? Howard going down to Indianapolis?
We'll be past it. They're just playing for time there. Everybody's going to be past that. But
that's what their hope is, for sure.
If they win those 5, if they go 4-1 in those, okay, suspension over. If they go 0-5, maybe
I really think it's more about the blowback and the image of the school. It's like why they fired Gary Moeller, right? Because it was the image. You know,
and it happened on a very slow sports weekend too.
And back then they were truly
slow news.
An elite program, whereas now I think they're really worried about falling out of the upper echelon. And if they can't bring these great coaches in, then
boy, those are viewing that through green tinted glasses.
No. When Gary Moeller was the coach, they were just
then. I thought you meant now.
No. That's what I'm saying. Is I said I think at that time there was a lot more confidence and swagger in Ann Arbor than there is now. Where
I think Shawn, you had the nail on the head. The Moeller thing was just about being embarrassed because of those audio tapes were out there.
Well, it's the same with Ray Rice. Remember Ray Rice? Sure. It was a story when it leaked out that he had hit his girlfriend or abused hit. I mean, obviously we hadn't seen the tape, but once the video was out, he was done.
I wish more people would realize that, because people get so mad at the media and news. It's like, well, video is just a huge component to it.
The emotional
audio,
the emotional quality.
That's why some things are a story and some things aren't, because there's video.
Let me ask you guys this: were either of you watching the game live?
Of course, yeah.
Were you?
It's a terrible
game.
Not. They were awful.
Well, did you? Because when I was actually going to write about it in relation to the NCAA tournament.
Were you there, by the way?
No. I was watching at home. I was going to zoom in for the press conference. I was going to do a column just about their NCAA tournament chances. And I'm sitting there watching it. When I watched it live, I thought he punched him.
Yeah.
Until the replay, and then I could see. I mean, I went, oh my God.
And I got to tell you,
it was shocking to watch live.
I think watching it, like if you watched it without the audio on with the announcers, or with, I think that will kind of skew people's perception on it, because who is that? Who's the play-by-play guy? He's a really good guy. I think like him doing. Is it Harlan? Was it Kevin Harlan? I don't remember.
I can't remember who it was. Sorry,
but he was so over the top about the fight. Naturally, because it's something exciting going on. That I think that kind of feeds into it. But
I didn't think he was that over the top. He was
really?
ugly.
I
man.
thought he was.
That was ugly.
I want to hear Shawn McDowell. Oh, he's trouble with the slap. Another great Michigan moment.
Never heard it.
So let me ask you guys about the other element of this that's come out. That I think, and in terms of disrespect, when you slap a man, that's disrespectful. Just punch him. Anyway,
well, I think he was trying to grab him. I really do.
Well, at any rate,
that was a swing.
The thing that when
can't do either, but
when Howard, and I'm going to attribute this to Howard because that's what the university did. They attributed it to Howard. He apologized with a statement. Does anybody have a problem?
Sure.
With the apology coming out on a piece of paper 100%. That may or may not have been written by him?
100%.
I mean, Shawn, how do you feel about that?
I don't love it, but that's just how our culture works. Period. Sports, not sport. Bullshit. When somebody makes a mistake,
Shawn,
we see statements all the time.
And it's bullshit.
Well, of course it is, but it's not like he's the first person to do this. He's fallen in line with how doesn't it feel to y'all like this is just all so goddamn lawyered up? Everything. Well, yeah, I think that's why he didn't say anything.
Well, I understand.
I think that's why he didn't say anything Sunday evening when it started to get really bad, and then all day yesterday.
Everybody sees through it.
So I think there's an alternative to that doesn't involve blasphemy. I think that he doesn't feel sorry, and I think that statement was released at bayonet point. And
probably.
And Shawn, you're absolutely right. We have gotten to a point as a society, as a media, where people can respond to questions by email. It used to be by fax, and now we don't even.
And they're afraid to say the wrong thing, right? Because of the
but the
public
thing is,
relations and lawyers.
To me, if you're genuinely contrite, you appear. I mean, you face the music. That's part of being a man. If we want to get into the whole who's a man, who's what.
I don't think it's his decision, though. That's what I'm trying to say. This is.
I haven't seen anything
administration
from him that says
of the
he feels
university all getting together, and their top PR people on that campus getting together.
That's weak. That's just weak, though.
I agree, but this is what happened, right?
He could have read that statement and put it out on Twitter, like a video of him,
or did right? What D'Antonio did.
Could have read. I mean, we're talking about video.
It's like when Mary Sue Coleman didn't show more contrition. Not Mary Sue Coleman. Excuse me. The Michigan State president,
Lou Ann Simon.
Lou Ann Simon didn't show contrition13 with Nasser, and she was so afraid to get out there and speak.
Well, she was also in some legal trouble.
No, right, but it's the same idea.
Oh, I don't think so. Lawsuits have been filed there, and she hadn't. Well, the question was, what did she know? It wasn't what had she done. The thing, so Juwan Howard's been suspended, so presumably he has time to spare. But he could have done what D'Antonio did when Sports Illustrated went crazy on Michigan State. Come out, made a statement, and say, I'm coming out, I'm making a statement, I'm not going to take any questions. Made a statement, and if he decide, well, I'll answer one or two questions. Answer one or two questions in jet. But I do think, excuse me, it's imperative when you're a leader who's failed to provide leadership to then on the back end do as much as you can to show, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to face this. I'm going to set an example for my guys. I'm going to show them that I'm sorry. I'm not ashamed. I'm willing to take some questions, and I'm going to move on instead of saying, take this piece of paper that somebody else wrote, put it out under my name, and then just kind of fade.
I don't think that was his decision, frankly.
No, I know, but
we see this.
Then shame on whoever
We
held him
see
back.
this all the time.
Sure.
We
But
see
don't
it
you
at
think-
political level too, right?
Let me give you an example. When
Absolutely, and it's wrong. It's
No,
wrong.
I completely agree. It's just that's just where we are.
Here's an example of someone who didn't do it that way, and think of him what you might. But Joe Rogan, in his multiple apologies lately, he gets in front of Instagram, and you can kind of judge how a person, their sincerity level, when you see them saying it. Juwan could have easily, if they said, here's your statement, this is what you're doing, if he's really apologetic and felt bad about it, he could have said, no, I want to do this part, and I want to do it on a video.
He's
or
going to say that to the university that easily could have fired him.
Yes.
No, he's not. It's at that point, it's self-preservation.
He's the second most recognizable person on that campus.
But he doesn't have that much power, right?
I think he
the
would.
image of the university is the number one thing, and I'm not saying it should be, but that's how it comes out of the administration, right? The folks that run that campus, that's what they care about.
Let me suggest to you that based on the way they've handled John Vaughn, based on the way they've handled Marc Schlissel,
I agree. I think
based
they
on
need
the way
better
they've
PR.
handled almost everything, the Jim Harbaugh situation, whoever's doing their communications at the University of Michigan is not a leader and the best.
It's a turtle.
I would not
turtling.
I would not disagree.
Whatever metaphor you want, whatever analogy,
That's
whatever
assuming
cliche,
you're right.
Right.
That's assuming you're right that they game planned how Howard was going to handle this.
Oh,
They absolutely
absolutely. There are people that get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars over there to do that.
Yeah, no, I have no doubt that every single word that appeared in that statement was carefully measured and parsed out before it was parceled out. But if they're the ones, but you know what? Do you really truly believe that Juwan Howard said, no, I got to go out there. I've got to I think they said,
could have.
read this, say this, and he said, all right.
What do you mean? He didn't say it. I mean, they just put out the statement.
No, I know, but I'm saying that, if the university said, hey, we're going to put out this statement, I don't think he was dying to get in front of a camera to say, yeah, I blew
but
my,
I think he could have. I think he could have filmed something and put it out on their Twitter. I think that just speaks
he
way
could
more
have,
about.
and he should have, and perhaps he was overruled, as Shawn says, by the university. But there's nothing I've seen from Juwan Howard since this happened where I felt like he's just like, yeah, I really stepped on my crank. I better get out there and make the best of it.
I bet
think
you
he
can
still
better
feels like that bitch touched me, and he got what he had coming.
You can better believe now he understands.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I don't know if I believe it now.
Whether
but
he's
we'll see
sorry
if
or
it
not is a
happens
different
again.
question. But I don't think he fully understood when he met the media right after the game, 15 minutes, whatever. I don't think he fully understood what had happened
or how big it was going to be.
Exactly, like truly what it meant.
But frankly, there should be somebody.
That just means
there.
it never occurred to him that what he did was wrong.
Well, there should be someone
Well, yeah,
there.
you're in the heat of the moment. You take a swing, right? I mean, you just people. Unfortunately, we do.
There's got to be an adult in the room because as soon as I saw it happen, I just went, "Oh, this is going to be a big, bad problem." It is. I mean, it was on the nightly news. It was on the Good Morning America.
And I know we got to wrap this up, but real quickly, Mike, to get back to your point about nobody wants to be on the wrong side of the fairness, the ledger, the scales, whatever. And I understand, but just keep this in mind: Jim Caldwell, former Lions coach, has still not gotten a second chance in the NFL, right? Mm-hmm. For years and years and years, for 95% of the history of the NFL, if you were a white coach and you failed, Bill Belichick, right? Cleveland and New England. If you're a white coach and you often got a second chance, sometimes a third chance.
Usually with
that
the
was
Lions.
true in the NBA up until the last 5, 6, 7 years ago. Dwayne Casey, who's a Pistons coach, is a good example of how that's changed a little bit. But that's for so long. This is how it's been. If you were white, you got a second chance. I'm just talking about the sports world.
Well,
and as a coach in general, and another job. And if you were black, you did not. The facts bear that out. The percentages bear that out. So if we're going to get upset,
Lovie Smith would be the exception to that
right?
rule.
Yeah, then that's
I don't know how he keeps getting
and
jobs.
that's just recent. So if we're going to get upset at that fact when it's been so far the other way for so long, we got to have some grace here. We got to have some grace period.
That's fine. I wouldn't disagree with that. But then when you're looking at one incident, why does all that have to be? I don't know. I just get a little exhausted with the overanalyzation of the what ifs and it's like,
I
no,
agree.
It was wrong.
But
it's not.
He was
fireable.
completely wrong.
Yeah.
The difference here, and we're a little bit away from the conversation, so I may have the details a little bit conflated in my head, but the difference here isn't whether one person should have an edge on an opportunity. The difference is one guy should get hammered and one guy should get a pass. Both can be punished. I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Or both can be let go. It's a little different with the coaching thing, and there were, Lenny Wilkins did not have the greatest, Wes Unseld was not the greatest NBA coach. There have been NBA coaches who've gotten more leeway, but in the NFL, we talked about it before. I'm totally with you. When you only have one more black coach in the NFL than you do in the NHL, that is fucking crazy, and there's no other way to look at it.
Although that changed, last week or whenever, to your point with Lovie Smith. You're right. It's just the idea of getting
Mike McDonald.
It's the idea of a second chance and all that sort of thing. You're right. I mean, it's just that's starting to change, which is a good thing.
Yeah, how many people thought Brian Flores would get another chance in the NFL in any position?
Well, he's lucky there was a black coach in Pittsburgh, and they're lucky that the Rooney Rule is named after the owners of the Steelers.
Yeah, right.
I think that was the Steelers feeling like, hey, we better. If we're just going to put our name on some bullshit, we better prove that it's not bullshit, and we're going to step up.
I don't know if it had been true, if it had been in reverse. I don't know if Greg Gard had been, if Greg Gard was Wisconsin coach, if he'd pulled the punch or took the swing. Sorry, wasn't a punch. If he'd taken the swing and hit Sadie Washington upside the head, right, which would be the same, would he have lost his job? I mean, maybe.
No. I don't think so.
I don't know that he would have. He might have. Maybe. Who knows? But if he did, and it's because we're still trying to sort through the history of this country, I think that we can live with that. I do. I think we can find our way through that. If there are going to be some folks that have to make
but Greg Gard might have trouble living with it.
Really?
Getting fired, being overly punished for something, I think he'd have trouble living with that.
Well, we don't know if he'd be overly punished or not, right? I mean,
you're suggesting that it's okay to be overly harsh on someone of a certain class because other people were overly harsh. I guess what I would say is I'm all for creating opportunities for people who have a history of being oppressed, but I'm not for being unfair to people who aren't a part of that group just because it's your turn to take it in the ass. My goal is that nobody gets screwed.
Yeah, but then what happens? With the University of Michigan, let's stay right there. What happens with the Supreme Court ruling on affirmative action? And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but you know what happened? After they ruled, the percentage of black students at Michigan went down, and it's still down. Here was society trying to find a way to change that, and a couple of people who were white said, no, I belong there. My daughter belongs there. I'm going to take it through there, and it fucked everything up.
But that's about access to opportunity.
But hold on a second. Here's the distinction, and now I'm on firmer ground as we're getting into this. The distinction I draw is opportunity versus punishment.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody has a little advantage on opportunity because they've been disadvantaged for so long, and people can debate this, I'm okay. I personally am okay with it, but I'm not for saying, these guys got screwed forever, so this guy should get more punishment than he deserves. To me, opportunity, I'm willing to make some, give people a little boost.
To me, it's the same thing. It's all opportunity. It's opportunity for a second chance.
No. If you don't get into a college because of the way you look, that's different than getting an extra 2 years on your prison sentence because of how you look. That you should not be enhancing punishment and justifying that by saying, well, we're enhancing opportunity. Enhance opportunity, do not enhance punishment.
It's all opportunity. It's opportunity for a second chance.
This is why Donald Trump is successful, because he takes this and he says,
I agree.
You're getting punished more than you deserve. This is why people are into this whole critical race theory teaching debate because they feel like it's not about creating opportunity, it's about punishing someone. They can't tell the difference. But when you're talking about your right to keep your job, your right to maintain your freedom, you cannot enhance the punishment and say it's okay that somebody got more than they deserved because the other people got more than they deserved. No, you should be saying what happened to them was wrong. We're done with that. And we're not going to try and offset by saying, now you're my bitch.
You're talking about, in theory, in a vacuum, fine. But you're not. But that's not how the real world works. That's not how our country is set up. It's still not how our country is set up. And it's not punishment. It's an opportunity for forgiveness. It's an opportunity for another opportunity, which has not been on the level forever. And it's finally starting to get that way.
We agree with that.
That's how I look at it.
But you're okay with people getting an extra punishment because of the way they look, and I'd say that's just as wrong.
No, not because of the way they look. If that had happened to Guard and Wisconsin says, "Oh, that's a bad look for us," it's them looking at their image, right? It'd be the reverse, and they're going to fire Guard because they don't think it looks good for a little white guy to take a slap at a black assistant coach at Michigan. And I'm not saying that would happen. I don't know that would happen at all. But if it did, they're doing it for their own public relations reason because of the larger context of society. And I know that's not fair, but that's the reality.
That might be why they're doing it. Doesn't mean it's right.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying
you seem to be arguing it's right. I think that's where we're hung up here.
Yeah,
You're being so stupid.
You're stupid.
No, you're stupid.
You're stupid.
It's all mood in a way. It's just interesting that
so many people went there right away. It's just not where my head went.
No, mine either. But it's forced me to because I've gotten a lot of reaction to the two columns,
and that's why Whitlock writes the way he writes.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, he knew it would get.
He knows what he's doing.
Absolutely.
Did you guys see me win that conversation?
I think that's a good point.
I really didn't.
That's a good point to welcome Shawn back.
I know. See how much better it is when you're here?
He's got energy. He's got some skin tone. He's wearing a fantastic hoodie. And
he's feeling good, right?
Pleased to see you back and in fighting trim.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling all right. It's just this is frustrating stuff.
Sure.
This is really, it's just the grievance garbage, the critical race theory garbage. Michelle Tafoya, the sideline reporter for the NFL, going off and, oh my God, after getting paid from a league that has done what it's done and the way with the coaches, it's just so hypocritical and, oh.
Okay, so we're not moving on.
No, I don't want to get in. I don't want to get in.
Well, you just took us back there.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I'll send you LZ Granderson's piece from the Los Angeles Times about Tafoya and her background and the neighborhood she grew up in, the deeds and just the history of this country and how, we don't want to teach any of this in schools. Oh, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Well, Shawn, if I could bring us back to J.T. Harding, if I could offer a couple of songs that might help you through this time, how about Smile? And I don't want to say it's by Uncle Cracker because that's not racist. That's actually the man's name.
Beer and Sunshine.
And perhaps we could get some Beers and Sunshine.
Well, there's a group
Darius
called
Rucker.
Cracker too, right?
Yeah,
there is. Outstanding group. I'd love to play them on this.
They
show
were part of the
Camper Van Beethoven.
Take the Skinheads bowling group, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
it was Camper.
I saw them at Rick's.
I saw Cracker
Camper Van Beethoven. Yeah, back in the 80s.
St. Andrews.
Did you?
When it was Cracker, but a great
Low,
band.
was that their big hit?
Yeah.
Low?
We had
a bunch of them.
We had them in studio.
It would be nice to play some of that kind of stuff.
I love that song.
Their lead singer, David, and I forget his last name, who's a friggin' genius, ended up being a professor at the University of Georgia.
It might be nice to play the Pixies from once in a while.
Oh, love the Pixies.
Yeah. Can we expand?
Should we just do Shawn Month and let him pick whatever he wants?
If he's willing to make the effort.
I don't. Mike's already going down a nostalgia road with this, and it's fun. I don't need to go down a nostalgia road for the Pixies or whatever.
I've seen the Pixies a couple times. Shitty.
What? Really?
Terrible.
I just saw them a few years ago. They were good.
I saw the Replacements one time in
they're
person.
different
and
now.
They were drunk as shit. And
they're a little mellowed out.
Well, they're different now because they got rid of Kim.
Could barely play.
No, because I think Black Francis has realized being an asshole is
he's
no way to
total
go
asshole.
through
Wow.
life.
I think when the Breeders did better than his solo album, that was a little dose of humility
Black?
for him. Yeah.
Yeah. What was his song with the giant aspirin in it?
That is such a great album. His first solo album.
Headache? That's a good tune.
That's the second album. Yeah.
Good video, too. I actually had Tommy Stinson said something shitty to me at, I think, maybe Good Time Charlie's in Ann Arbor. No, I went up to him after. I went to go see him at, they played at.
Oh, seriously, what happened?
Did you say, I won't forget this shit?
Is that, what's the big.
There's a Power Center there.
yeah.
It's on campus, yeah.
Yeah, right on State
Huron.
Street there.
No, it's Huron.
No, it's on Huron and.
Maybe I saw him.
And Ann or near Ann or whatever.
It was either the Power Center or Hill Auditorium. And of course, the power center is Jim Harbaugh and Juwan Howard, but we don't want to get back into that. But I think I saw him at one of those places, and we went to a bar afterwards. It wasn't Good Time Charlie's. It was
Rick's.
It wasn't Rick's.
Touchdown.
No, but it was a
Brown
kind
jug?
of. No, it wasn't the Brown Jug either. Damn, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, I went up to him, and he was sitting there, and he was remarkably coherent for being the replacements after a show. And I said, "Hey, are you Harvey Stinson? I mean, are you Tommy Stinson?" And he said, "You know, I mean, I pretty much knew it was, but I didn't know how to introduce myself to a star who I really admired." And he said something like, "No, I'm Harvey, Bushmiller or something like that." And I said, "Oh, I didn't think you were an asshole," and I walked away, something to that effect. But he thought he was being clever, and I was just sort of like, "Oh, you're a dick."
Wow, you really jumped to that part pretty quick.
So speaking of that era, I'm in Toronto in the late '80s with a girlfriend at the time, and we're in this little.
Is it the goth chick?
Nice.
It was, and we're in this little coffee shop.
Yeah.
And having an espresso,
Doing
whatever,
heroin.
because we're trying to, whatever. And we want to get a little something to eat. And the guy gives us a couple choices. He said, no, you need to go to this kind of place. It's a little bit more your speed. Yeah. He was basically telling us we were completely uncool and had no whatever. And he was just blunt.
Not the first time.
No, and that's fine. I've never been cool in my life, but it was just odd that how blunt he was.
Yeah, what an asshole.
And he was just, and I remember my girlfriend at the time, we're looking at each other, and she couldn't. She didn't sleep. I mean, it was so cutting, and so you're just not used to that.
We
kind
know
of
why
shit.
she didn't sleep.
Wait a minute, you weren't at like Canadian Denny's. You were at a cool place.
No,
and
it
they
was
said,
this
"You're
cool
not
little
enough."
espresso back in this. Remember these days too. Back those days, if you went to a place that sold espresso, unless it was an Italian restaurant, a coffee shop that had espresso, it was a hipster place before hipster was even a word. Really,
Smoking Jarum cigarettes and wearing
no,
a
she
beret.
smoked cloves. You know the shit, right? It's just, but I don't know why I thought about it. But it's just that whole music scene and of that era with that. There was just all the people looked down on people, and
that wasn't unique to that. Studio 54 had people at the door saying you can't come in because you and
but it was a different crowd saying that to a different crowd, right?
No, but that's always been that way. Like,
no, for sure.
So if you remember the scene on
the whole
Channel
idea of street
62,
cred, right?
there would be people lined up on Jefferson Avenue to get into the scene, which was sort of like Detroit's local Soul Train. And I was not a good dancer, and I wasn't cool enough, and didn't have the clothes to get.
Yeah, but
on
that's
the
a
scene.
club. That's not a coffee shop.
No, it was a TV show. But the word on the street was, because I did have my ear to the ground, is if you're going to go on the scene, do not come dressed all in white because you need to pop. When the camera hits you, they do not want somebody dressed head to toe in white. You had to wear something that was, this is the disco era. You had to have, flash. But I mean, people
you gotta
always
dress like
excluded
JT.
people.
No, I remember. I would cooked at the Fleetwood Diner in Ann Arbor back in the late '80s, and
Was it really you or Gordon Food Service?
It was me, and we
Okay.
cooked everything from scratch. Anyway, it wasn't really, and there was a
Scratch
time.
acid?
There was a time when the Ann Arbor Film Festival, which was a really experimental sort of whatever,
A lot of berets in that crowd.
they would cook for. I would cook for the judges during when they would hold themselves up and decide to make decisions on what they were going to show and the winners of the festival and all that. And so I would get tickets to the grand opening, and you'd go in, and it was all these folks. It's funny. You think about bear with me for one quick second. You think about the Democratic Party and the struggles of working class.
I think we have no choice.
Working class people, white folks, all that. Well, I can remember in that goddamn film festival in that lobby, all those elitist sons of bitches looking down. This is in the early 90s, and looking down on anybody that farmed or was a plumber that changed. And I just remember thinking, I hated it. And I couldn't take that scene. I'm like, okay, the movies are interesting, but damn.
That's why people hate Hollywood.
So I
Yeah,
was, everything's on the internet. So I just looked up what the menu was that those judges would order from Shawn. It was Gitanes, the French cigarettes, black coffee, and heroin.
Well, corned beef hash is what we did. We made it from scratch. It was really good.
Hippie hash.
No, it was
that after? Oh, that
was a little bit different. But back in
those.
those days, the Fleetwood was great because it was a mix of townies.
Awesome.
All kinds of people making all kinds of different levels of money and doing work. It was a real great melting pot. It's
great.
It really was. Now it's a student hangout. But
Did you have to get a job there to hang out there, or were you cool enough by then? Or did you just dump that goth chick who was bringing you down?
I was never cool enough. People would come in and sit at the counter, and we'd get the lines because of the way I made hash browns. But it had nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? I used real butter. and the owner finally caught on to that instead of oil.
Groundbreaking.
Yeah, no, it changed everything.
Damn.
It's amazing how something so simple like that.
It's like Knives Out. This whole show has just been a big wind up to try and get to Shawn was using butter on the hash browns instead of oil.
I'm hungry.
But it led to a line out the door.
Okay.
And then the owner was like, no, because butter's more expensive than shortening, right? So,
Sure.
yeah. So, they
You
put a
should've
kibosh
stopped-
on that.
You should have stopped when you were ahead.
Yeah, I think we have a line out the door of listeners right now. I was going to try and tee up Carlos and Shawn podcast, but I think we've already gotten into it. It's going to be revelations about corned beef.
No, it's going to be more Jawan Howard stuff.
I guess we are going to get into it.
And Carlos has been covering the fire at the Oakland Hills, Oakland Hills Country Club, so we'll probably, unfortunately, have to talk about that.
Unfortunately.
Well, it's golf. But, it is sad that it burned down, right? So
is it?
I don't know. Is it? I mean, they're your people, Mark.
Nope, they're not my people. No. I don't know. Nobody got hurt. I mean, it's sad because it's a historic building, I suppose, but it's insured. It will be. There's a GoFundMe for some reason.
Wow. Yeah.
That I don't understand, but yeah. No, I mean, yeah, sure.
Okay. So
it's very sad to those people. They saved all the historic stuff inside, so.
For reasons that escape me, if you want more of that, you can tune into the Carlos and Shawn podcast, where they will talk about other stuff that's probably better.
Yeah, like Howard, like we just did here.
Yeah. So we
maybe
appreciate
a little bit different perspective in there. You know what I mean?
We appreciate you listening to us. If you missed last week's show, we had Jerry Vile of The Dirty Show on, legendary Detroit troublemaker. Please check that show out. Please like, subscribe, rate, and love our show if you feel so inclined. We do have one 5-star rating that we've received in the last week. It says, I enjoy the variety of topics covered along with the witty repartee. So I'm not sure he's got the right show, but we appreciate the 5. Oh, no, wait. 5 stars. We have 579 ratings. Please bring us to 580. Please subscribe. If you're listening, please subscribe to the live broadcast. You can watch it as it happens on YouTube channel ML Elric, or you can watch the replay. It's always interesting when we have colorful guests to see them as they say what they have to say. And if you're listening, we, of course, appreciate you taking us wherever you're going. We promise not to tell if it's someplace you'd rather folks not know that you frequent. And, there's lots of time to kill these days. How about checking out some of our other Red Shovel Network shows? Charlie LaDuff's No BS News Hour. There's, of course, the Drew and Mike podcast. And JT Harding, if you want to see him in person, again, you can find him on March 4th. That's a Friday at 20 Front Street in Lake Orion. $20 to get in. All that money goes to support the bar and the good people who work there. We'll have a link to their website on our website. March 8th, that's a Saturday. Come see me and JT. I mean, really, you come to see JT, and I'll be there at the bar. At the Cadieux Cafe, 4300 Cadieux Road. That's $30 to get in, but you also get a book when you get in there. And I want to toss ahead a little bit to St. Patrick's Day. We will be doing a special live broadcast from the Cadieux Cafe from noon to 2 p.m. on Thursday, March 17th. Please come out and join me. It's going to be a great time. There's going to be great music. Your hosts, John Rutherford and his partner, Paul, put on a great show. We've been trying to do the St. Patrick's Day edition there for 3 years now. We're finally going to make it happen. And I think I'm probably going to bring out some of our sweet Soul of Detroit merch if you'd like to buy some. So I'd love to see you at the Cadieux on the 5th or on the 17th. In the meantime, have a great week. We will see you next week here at the Soul of Detroit. Cyrus, take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You're gone, man. Am I being kicked out of the podcast that I started? Let's go.
Shawn?
Hello. This is Carlos Monarez. I'm starting a sports podcast.